My esteemed guest today is the award-winning music producer and songwriter with multiple Grammys and Dove Awards, two Academy Award nominations, and a win for Colors of the Wind from the Disney movie Pocahontas. Our esteemed guest, Keith Thomas. Now, he has contributed to the creation of more than 100 million albums worldwide, and his work has resulted in over 40 number one singles. His impressive resume includes collaborations with some of the most notable names in music, such as Whitney Houston and Bebe and Cece Winans, Barbara Streisand, Michael Bolton, Selena, even Amy Grant and Vanessa Williams, just to name a few. But in 2017, Keith was asked to join a select group of writers and producers to create content for Facebook's Sound Collection, a free music service for Facebook and Instagram Reels and Snapchat subscribers. Now, while Sound Collection has yielded billions of usages worldwide, Keith's music alone, used in music videos since January of 2022, has generated over 8 billion views. So without further ado, let's welcome multiple award-winning songwriter, music producer, and visionary, the one and the only Keith Thomas, to the show. Welcome, Keith.
Wow. Wow. Who is this guy? That was impressive. I'm a little intimidated now.
Well, I tell you what, that was the short version.
Oh my gosh. Well, that just tells you how old I am, right?
I don't know, or either that, or you know how to pack it all into a 24-hour day and get the job done. But with such
That's it
a
right there.
yeah, that's it. But with such a stellar career, is there anything you haven't accomplished yet?
Oh my gosh. It's funny you say that because I feel like I'm just getting started. But I do. I still hunt it. It's like it's once you experience the music business, it's a drug. And that is my drug. I've never had one piece of recreational drug or anything like that. But this is it. It just keeps me going, and I'm passionate about it still to this day. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I want to do. We can talk about some of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, how old were you when you started singing in your father's gospel group?
Oh, wow. Well, it's funny. My dad, I was probably 6 or 7 years old when my dad would put the guitar in the bed, and I would it was so big that I had to just strum it with just the neck in my lap, right? Then he would take me to church and put the body in a chair, and I would stand up and just hold the neck and play and sing in the church. So we made our first record when I was 9 years old. And oh my gosh, at the Smyrna music store in Smyrna, Georgia, and the engineer, I sang so loud, he asked me if I'd ever done hog calling, which I had at that age. So that was what was so funny. And then after the session, they took me upstairs and said, "Hey, you can pick out any guitar you want." And me, not knowing really much about anything, I picked out a different brand. I should have picked out a Martin, right, which would have been like incredibly valuable today. But anyway, I still have that guitar from today, which is it's amazing. That was a great experience. But yeah, we made our first record at 9. I made another when I was 12 years old. So I've been doing it a while.
Yeah, so when did you start writing songs, and do you have a particular songwriting process?
Well, I started my first song was I didn't write till probably 77, 78, something like that. I was on the road with a group called the Sherritt Brothers, and they were on Word Records at the time. And all the guys in the band hated me because I had this Suitcase Rhodes. And if you're not familiar with the Suitcase Rhodes, a Rhodes piano, but it's got this massive amp that goes underneath it. So after the show every night, they would have to help me drag my piano up to my hotel room, and I would sit there and play till 2 or 3 in the morning. But that's where I wrote my first song, and it was called "Song for the Heart." And the guys actually recorded it on their Word Records debut album, and it was the title of the album. So that was my first cut,
You
which
know,
I go, hey, not too bad.
to hear about somebody dragging along a keyboard with an amp reminds me of all the artists that have dragged a Hammond B3 with a Leslie on tour.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, well, this is about as bad because it's so heavy. But because you drag it out from under the bus and they go every time they were just like, oh my God, here he goes again. So, but I would take it up there, and that was like, I couldn't get enough of it. And that's the thing. Back in the day, my mom, oh my gosh, I tell this story a lot because I got my first real piano when I was 16, but my mom would bring in a plate of chicken and just put it on top of the piano and walk out. And that's I would play 8 hours, 9 hours a day, not even thinking about it.
But
So
see, that's true passion right there.
it really was. And it wasn't anything that, my mom and dad, okay, so our house was so small that, I mean, you could hear everything from one end to the other. And my bedroom was right next to theirs, and they never once said to me, "Stop. Don't do that. You're too loud." And I would sing and play until, the wee hours of the morning. But that just goes to, it's a testament to my father. My father was a musician, a hillbilly musician, who I'm actually living his dream. He wanted me, all I heard growing up was, well, you're going to move to Nashville and you're going to make it. It's something that he was never able to do. But yeah, so I would play and play. No one ever had to make me play or practice or anything. It's just one of those things where the passion was there, and I knew what I loved, and that's kind of where I started learning to play piano. And I grew up in a really super uber religious home. My dad was primitive Baptist, foot washing in the church, outside meals on the ground, that sort of thing, and I just go, I look back at all of that, and I'm so grateful for that experience because taught me to appreciate so much of what I have now. But, we grew up, I mean, I was really poor. We had nothing. And then to look at what my dad was able to do, I always had a piano, I had a guitar, I had a drum, I had a steel guitar, all of this stuff. And I have no idea how he afforded it.
Wow. You
Interesting.
know what I love is I talk with so many recording artists. And the thing is you have half of them where their parents said get a real job, and then the other half where the parents actually supported their passion and their dream, maybe funded their move to Nashville or LA or
Right.
New York. And you just see two opposites where a lot of these people came from. But I love to hear with your story that your parents were 110% behind you, and they
Absolutely.
knew what your talent was, and in a way I think they knew what your calling was.
Well, I think so. And I mean, my dad, I mean, he was a hillbilly musician, and he traveled some and played with the Sons of the Pioneers back in the day. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that name,
Oh yeah.
but he was a hillbilly musician. That's what he wanted to do. But he and mom got married and had two boys, and my older brothers who have since passed, and then became a Christian and started being minister of music and a pastor or a minister of music at this church directly across the street from where we grew up. And we were in church, whether we liked it or not, every Wednesday and Sunday. There was no excuse. You had to go. So we grew up that way. And then we started this little family group, the Thomas family. It was called Little Keith Thomas and the Thomas Family. And when I play the record for people, it's just a hoot because later in high school, I joined a drama club, and so my theater teacher talked me into joining the drama club. But my family, we were pretty Southern. I used to talk like this when I was in high school, and so she would beat the accent kind of out of me, right? And but then my family would make fun of me at the table at night. I'd put endings on my words, and they would be like, "Oh my God, who is this?" But that was a different part of my life that I look at the change that would happen during her part of my life or her influence on my life, and I wouldn't take anything for that. I mean, I experienced so many different things with this teacher. She kind of took me under her wing, talked me into joining the drama club. I ended up becoming the president of the drama club 2 years in a row, and then started winning all these awards, for acting. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. I have to tell this story too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, well, my senior year, this teacher, this particular Linda Wise is her name. She was able to get a role for me in New York, all lead roles if I'd go. And so we went to a rehearsal in Atlanta at the Alliance Theater, and there was a dance routine, and this girl's boob fell out, and a guy grabbed it to get a laugh. I'm like, I forgot how old I was, like 17 years old, I guess, maybe, or 18. And he just grabs me and said, "You're not going to New York." And that was the end of my acting career. And so it was like, because he's primitive Baptist, no, you're not going by yourself to New York. But I did. I started winning these awards and got a scholarship at Stanford University, and this is all through this one teacher who kind of took me under her wing, and she was my mentor during high school. And I will never I contribute so much of what I know and have become to her because that would have never happened, without her.
Have you, and I'm sure you have, to take a long look back from where you started to where you are today, are you amazed on how God took you from point A to point B, but the ups, the downs, the sideways routes and journeys that you've taken, the miracle connections that came to you? I'm sure it's probably, in a way, you have to be in awe and a little bit breathtaking as to what the Lord has done.
Absolutely. I am blessed, and I know that. But there's a part of us, I think, all of us, that we look at it and we go, "Well, I could have done this, I could have done that." But to be honest, I've lived a charmed life, and it's basically because of the talent God gave me, and I've been able to do that and move from one place to the other. And I look back on it, and yeah, there were a lot of great times, a lot of awards and stuff like that. But there were tough times, and sometimes you don't appreciate those tough times until you're on the backside of it. You can look back on it and you go, "I'm better because of that." That was a necessary thing to happen. But I'm grateful for what I have, and I still have things I want to do and accomplish. And as the music industry changes or the record business changes, I'm trying to change with it and be involved in other things that I feel like are going to be meaningful, especially at this part of my life. I want to be able to have a bigger impact in a different way. Does that make sense? So
Oh yeah, yeah,
I've gotten,
completely.
yeah, and even though you still have to make a living, you have to do things that pay the bills, but it's not about the chart position or the fame or any of that stuff, which it never really was. I never have been one to go, "Hey, I want to be famous," because I think that's a byproduct of actually doing hard work. But for me, it's now wanting to leave something behind that makes a difference and it continues on when I'm gone, that sort of thing.
Well, and that's the greatest thing that I love about music. Music creates memories that will be everlasting. And
Right.
for you, how did your songwriting lead you into becoming a music producer?
Well, it's interesting, and this is an incredible story. I was on the road with that group. I was telling you, I got off the road, and I was at that point I'd started writing more songs. So I wrote a song after I got off the road, and I thought, wow, this sounds like Ronnie Millsap. So I knew he was playing in Atlanta. This would never happen today, but I called the venue where he was playing, and I actually spoke to his brother-in-law. And he said, "Well, yeah, just send a demo up to Rob Galbraith in Nashville, and tell him that we spoke." And so I went and did a little demo on my roads. I did two songs. Totally forgot about it. And about 3 months later, I get a call from Rob, and I'd signed it Brian Keith Thomas. And he said, "Brian, this is Rob Galbraith from Ronnie Millsap." He said, I threw your cassette in the trash, but something made me pick it up and take it out and listen to it." He said, "I love these songs. Can you come do demos on these songs?" And I'm like, duh. So I was in Nashville that weekend doing these songs, right? And while I was in Nashville, Rob said, Ronnie's starting a publishing company. Would you be our first staff writer?" And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, this is like a dream, of course, I would love that." And so when I got home and I told my dad, he thought I had made it. That was it, right? It was like to have Ronnie Millsap move me to Nashville. So we pack up the truck, we moved to Nashville. Not long after I got settled in, he and Mom took a Greyhound bus to Nashville to see and meet Ronnie and that sort of thing. They walked the halls of the studio, and they go home after 2 weeks, and we had such an incredible time together. We went fishing. It was just one of those things you never forget. But 2 weeks later, he passes away. So he got to see that, and in his mind, I had made it. Even though I hadn't really had any significant success at that time, I was just beginning of my career with Ronnie. But I did end up getting those two songs on the Millsack Magic album. And from that, I started writing with other writers in Nashville, and ended up meeting Michael Blanton at Word Records, and started doing work for Brown Bannister. You may know that name. Brown is a dear friend of mine who
Oh
produced Amy Grant
yeah.
early records. Yeah, yeah. And so Brown would use me on sessions and that sort of thing. And then I ended up getting an offer to go to Word as a staff writer and producer there. So some of the work that I had done at Ronnie's I was able to play that for them, and obviously that kind of paved the way for me. But at Ronnie would give me the studio. He'd be on tour. I'd have his studio 24/7 with his engineer, and so I would stay in there literally 12 hours a day just doing demos, and it didn't cost me anything because I was on staff, right? And man, that's where I learned to produce. And so I was able to get some stuff that Word thought was cool. So I went over to Word, and I was there probably 1980. No, I left in 1986. So anyway, I was there a good 6, 7 years, and had 21 number one records while I was there. So that was a good run for me. And then I started my own company in '86, Yellow Elephant Music. But
Yeah, because
that's where I learned to produce records.
that is so incredible because here you are, you have a mom and dad that allowed you to play 10 hours a day into the wee hours of the night, doing your thing. They never told you to stop. And then
Right.
here you are in being a staff writer for Ronnie Millsap. You could sit in the studio as long as you ever wanted. And again,
What
it's
a
just,
gift.
it's like practice. It's like what I tell people. If you just stay consistent in chasing your dream, eventually
Right.
every brick will come together. And that's what happened to you. Why did you say yes to Word Records?
Well, because they were offering me, I was a staff writer for Ronnie's, but they were offering me a production gig as well because the stuff that I had done over at Ronnie's. Okay, so they allowed me to do a test. Steve Camp, this was on his third album, and the way it was, I guess the way it was put to me was that we're not sure if we're going to do another album after this. This is going to be a test to see how well it does. So I ended up producing that record. It was number one for 6 months in a row. So that's kind of secured my position there. And then I started working on a variety of Word artists. And so for about 6 years, that's what I did. And it was a great experience for me. And at some point, I knew I was going to be leaving because it was a little bit confining in certain areas because back in those days, if I put an electric guitar screaming or something, it would never see radio. So you had to be careful and you had to know what would work at radio to be able to get it to be played. But I have developed so many friends and relationships through that whole period that are still strong today. And I tell everybody, it's not about the chart. It's not about the awards, not about their Grammy. It's about the relationships you build along the way, because that's the most important thing to me. It really is. And even down to Ronnie and Rob. So the beautiful part about that story is after all these years, it's come full circle to me that I'm working on a documentary on Ronnie's life. And he's trusting me with that. And I'm like, this is the story in itself, right? It's like he signs me as his first staff writer, and then all these years later, I'm going to come back and do a documentary on his life story. It makes me teary. It
Well,
really
you're
does.
you're gonna have to come back when that documentary is done because Ronnie Sil Millsap is one of my favorite country artists of all
Oh,
time. I because my wife laughs at me because she goes, when it comes to music, you're kind of like the middle of the road king. So I love Ronnie's music because it rides that fine line between country, but it still has, I hate to use the word pop, but it has
mhm.
that nice mainstream sound. But all his songs you can sing to. You can see the story in your mind when he sings.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when you get that done, oh, you have got to come back.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean, and most people don't know his story, and I'm not going to give it away here, but I went over to his house. This has been maybe 6 months ago because we're trying to get all our assets in a row. But I just put him on camera. He and Rob, and they just talked about story after story after story, and some of the stuff I didn't even know. So it's fascinating, and I'm really excited to get started on it. So
Well, yeah,
that to me is like a gift. It's like how do you can't write that book. It's pretty
no, you
amazing.
can't. And I've heard that they're doing a biopic film of Ronnie Millsap. So his legacy is
Right.
going to continue to grow. But with you, though, you had such great success at Word Records, 16 albums, over 20 number one singles. But with the success that you had over at Word, were you nervous to leave and start your own company, or was it just the right time to forge your own path?
Well, I think it was. I felt like it was the right time. I had been meeting other people and building other relationships. In fact, before I left, a friend of mine, Howard McCrary, who actually was part of the Steve Camp record, invited me out to PTL where he was the music director for the show. And so I went out just to spend a weekend, no other agenda. And on the show was BB and CC singing, as part of the group, right, for the band, the house band for this PTL club. And so when I heard BB sing, it was like, dude, you have to come on. I'm doing my final record for Word. Would you come on and do a guest appearance so maybe I could get you a deal? And so yeah, it sounds great. So BB comes to Nashville. I'd written this song called "It's Only Natural," and I sang him the hook, and the white version is "natural" or something like that. And he said, "No, it's natural." It's like the way he phrased it was pretty funny. So we wrote that song together, and I go, oh my gosh, this is it. It's just because I grew up also really influenced by Quincy Jones, James Ingram, all of these guys, right? And so I was in that frame of mind. So I started pitching it around to people, trying to get people to sign it. And I'm not going to name names, but I did play it for a few labels. One gentleman said to me in the parking lot of the Bennett House, he said, "Bro, I don't hear anything. It makes me want to hear anything more." I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay." Fast forward the next year at the Grammys, BB's walking home with the best R&B performance of that song, and I'm telling you, I've never let him live it down. But so with that, they got signed to Sparrow Records, and then Sparrow did a deal with Capitol. So when we go to make that first record, they want to replace me because they wanted a black guy to come in and produce. And so I have to give it to BB. BB said no, no, no Keith Thomas, no BB and CC. And that's how we started that whole process. And I owe him that. And back in the day, CC really wasn't that vocal about, very much in terms of like the deal makings and all that stuff. But both of them together. I mean, it was a situation where they thought they were going to get kicked out of the church because I was taking them in a direction so different from what they had grown up singing. They were singing in the church. I was taking them more of a pop R&B kind of a vibe, right? And so B was like, "You're going to get us kicked out of the church," and but it worked. It was like it was a moment where that they were able to pave a way for themselves, and it worked. So, and then they brought in Whitney, and that's how I met Whitney and was able to work with her. So they were very instrumental in me working with a lot of different people. And in fact, when I go, um, I've been on the board. I was on the board for 7 years, I guess, on the producer committee, um, and for the Grammys. And so we would always go and have our meetings in LA. And so we're sitting in this big room with probably 25, 30 producers, and I'm the only white guy in the room. And so everybody has to stand up and introduce themselves. And so when I said I'm Keith Thomas, the guy directly in front of me got down on his knees and he was doing this, and he's like, everybody's dying laughing. And he said he's the one that produced the BB and CC stuff. Of course, he used a different word, but it's like that was telling to me, because that stuff really worked, and I'm so grateful for that. I look back on that stuff, and I sometimes I'll go back and reminisce and listen to the stuff that we did early on, and I'm going, I don't know what I was thinking back then, but it still works, So
Well, I've
I'm
got a
grateful.
question that popped into my head that I've got to ask you because you brought something up. Because BB stood up for you. And in the
Right.
music industry, and more in the areas of producing, how important is loyalty, and does sometimes loyalty go too far?
Loyalty is to me is everything. I because it's and I've been in the situation a few different times where I see the talent, I get it, I spend the money to make it well, other people, so that other people can get it. And then once people start talking in that artist's ear, they think, oh, well, I could do better over here. And then they leave. And that's happened to a number of friends of mine as well. It's like, if you spend the time and energy and money to get it to a place where other people can see it, and then they leave you, there's no reward for that, and I've done that. I mean, I won't mention an artist's name, but I did. I spent $800,000 getting it to a place where all the majors were calling me. And after 3 years, after a 3-year deal, it just went away. And you just wonder about that. But I am loyal to a fault. I mean, and I will have to go back to Miss Amy Grant. She is the most loyal person on the planet. Still to this day, she calls me to work on things that she's doing. Most of the time, it's something that's going to be in the pop side of things. But still, we're such good friends and close. And she always, if there's a show and I'm there, she always does a shout out to me, and I just go that she's just class all the way around. You know, she lives it, and that's another one where I'm just grateful for that opportunity because I had this song. All I was singing was "Baby, Baby," and ever since the day you put my heart in motion, I handed it off to her, and she turned it into the rest of the song. But and then again, that situation, we both took flack for that because she was breaking barriers. You know, it was like I was told I was selling out, and she did too. And we just looked at it like we have a bigger platform, and that was important to us. And especially me, someone that wanted to go into the pop side of things, that was my first pop hit. So I
Well,
have no regrets about that.
that was one of my main questions to you today because you did write and produce Amy Grant's Baby Baby. And I still remember it to this day because at that time she was the top female Christian artist at that time.
Hmm.
And when you went into the studio with her, was it a big gamble in the studio or was the gamble after the song came out? Because I still remember the negative flack that came out because, like you said, people, it was really the Christian genre griping about she sold out. But what's
Hmm.
so funny was, or I should say, what's funny now, she broke the barrier down because now it's just normal.
Right? Yeah, she paved the way for others, and I'm so thrilled to be a part of that. In the beginning, because I had been working with her as a programmer on Lead Me On, and rightfully so, the managers really wanted me to just program, not produce. And then my manager at the time, who I met through Bebe and Cece, he said, "No, if you want the song, he's going to produce." And so that's how I ended up producing on the Amy Grant record. Um, Good for Me and Baby Baby, and then Michael Amarian produced another song that I wrote with Amy, I Will Remember You. But yeah, so I ended up going in the studio producing that track, and we did. I felt like I was able to feel like connect with her on a different level in terms of like vocally, and I learned from Brown, who actually was her original producer, right? And I'm looking back on that whole situation now, and I'm thinking, would I have been so nice to that other guy, that younger guy coming in? And I just go, Brown is another class act too, but I never felt he never felt threatened by me, and I never felt like he was resenting me or anything like that. It was like he's just welcomed me into the family, and it was like I'm so grateful for him because I've spent. I tell everybody this because when I was working on like David Meese and some of the other artists that he was producing at the time, I would see the sun come up so many times with him. It was crazy. It was to the point that you would just pass out on the sofa at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know. And that's Brown's history. I mean, everybody that's worked with Brown, you've watched the sun come up with him. That's the truth. And so Amy can attest to that. But so
Yeah.
many great stories and experiences with him.
Yeah, but it's so funny because a lot of people, if they really study the whole Christian genre of music, and I guess more on the contemporary side, I have
Hmm.
talked to Mylon Lefevre, um, Michael Sweeta Striper, and they'll tell you we couldn't even get inside the church. And now that type of music is basically modern day praise and worship. And then
Right.
here Amy goes the pop route and she gets the whole opposite negative vibe from really the Christian press because the mainstream press didn't even care. It was like, hey, this song is great. It's climbing up the charts. It's a big hit record. But it's so weird to see the contrast between the decades because back in I think with Striper and Broken Heart, that's going to be probably the '80s, and
Right.
um, of course Striper's still going on, and but just to see the changes of attitudes and how the industry um, has changed and looks at things now. It's completely different. Now, it doesn't matter what artist. They could come out if they want to do a gospel song tomorrow, great. If they want to do a rock album the next, I mean, my gosh, Dolly Parton, who knows what genre she's going to do next. But
Exactly.
but hey, if the record sells, everybody's happy. So
Right.
more power to you. But in 1995, you wrote and produced I Could Fall in Love for Selena, an
Right.
absolute monster hit on both the Spanish and the English pop charts. What was it like working with someone like Selena?
Well, it's hard to even talk about that without getting teary because we connected on a level that was like, I initially got a video of her asking if I'd be interested in working on the project. And so once I saw it, I go, absolutely. And I was going to actually do the whole album. And then at the time, my schedule got crazy. So we pared it down to like, I'll do 5 tracks. So I had 2 things written. And so she came to town. I played them for her. She loved them. And so we started recording. She came into town. This is funny because this is Selena. Her luggage didn't make it, so she goes to Walmart and buys a wardrobe and comes to the studio, and she brings back all these groceries. She's going to say, "I'm going to cook a Mexican feast for you guys." And so this is at the Bennett house, and Winona was working in Studio B. And so she's cooking, and you can smell it through I mean, it was amazing, right? So Winona walks down to the kitchen. She says, "Hey, if I buy groceries, would you cook for us too?" She thought she was our chef. And we got the biggest kick out of that. Oh my God, I will never let Winona live that down. But, she came in and just, we hit it off. And so I'll never forget seeing her standing at the back of the studio after we'd finished the vocal. And she said, "I'll see you guys in 2 weeks." And the next week, she was gone. And I was actually working in the studio on her vocal when I was taking a break, walked out into the studio lounge, and my studio manager said to me, "Selena's dead." And I remember having a physical pain in my heart. I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "She was just murdered." And I'm like, I had to go back in and I turned it on the news, and it was already on the TV. And I had to leave the studio. I didn't even work the rest of that week. It was that I was disturbed. I mean, it was like this girl. I'm working on her song right now, and now I've got to go finish it, and she's not even with us anymore. It was tragic, and such a sweetheart of a person too. I mean, she had been telling me about this person that she was going to meet with, about her clothing line and everything, and so she was really excited about that, and made the mistake to go by herself to confront her after she found out she was embezzling funds from her, and I just go, man, I wish somebody had gone with her. I don't think that would have ever happened, but yeah, that was.
Did
I mean,
you
it
notice?
was
Well, with Selena though, when she walked into the studio and you met her, did you feel that she instantly had that superstar quality?
100%. She had star power oozing out of her, and the smile, the way she carried herself, her personality, all of those things. You just know this girl's going to be a superstar. And she, to this day, she would have been a major competitor right now had she not ended tragically. Her life ended tragically, but I think anybody that worked with her felt the same way. And you can spot those. That's the other side of this business is that there's that thing that people talk about, the it factor, and that's real. You don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it. But when you're in the room with somebody like that, with like Selena or Amy Grant or Vanessa Williams, and you know there's something about them that's different. And Selena had that in spades.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I had talked to Dan Hill, and
Mm.
he had Celine Dion come by, and I think at the time she was only 14,
Oh,
and I
wow.
asked him the same question. He goes, "Oh yeah," he goes, "Even at that age, you knew she had something."
Right.
And of course, and she always at that time she was singing, and you could still hear that French accent in her voice, which really separated her. But you not only produced Selena, you had Whitney Houston, you said Vanessa Williams, Barbara Streisand, Yolanda Adams, women with very strong, distinct voices. For you, what's your approach in the studio with artists of that caliber?
Um, well, I mean, you just go in and obviously you just try to get the best performance you can out of them. And some of them, I say some of them, all of them were actually all of them were pretty. Uh, well, all of them were easy to work with. Whitney's the only one that I can say that I got hired to do this one song. Her father had hired me to do this song, and Bebe and Whitney were supposed to be at the studio on like a Thursday. I was in the studio. I had a guy named John Patoker, and a hotshot engineer from LA, paying him a ton of money a day to be in the studio, and they don't show up. So Friday they don't show up. So Saturday morning, someone calls and says, "Hey, I just saw Bebe and Whitney over at Houston's," and so I jump in my car and I go over there, and sure enough, they're sitting there having lunch. And I said, "You guys know you're supposed to be in the studio 2 days ago, right?" Anyway, they laughed it off, and we get in the studio, and Whitney, she wasn't singing the song the way I heard her in my head, and so I was trying to correct her, and I was telling her, giving her direction. She said, "Keith, turn that machine on. I'm giving you one take, and that's it." And that's what I got. But it's so. But from the others, it's a work in progress to me, because it's like. You work like Heather Headley. Oh my gosh, she's a beast. With people like Whitney and Heather and even Selena. It's like they give you so much good content that you have to decide what not to use because it's so good. So that's one of those things. And then because I do sing, I can sing them parts. And as a matter of fact, with Cece, when we were in the studio with her, I would sing her background parts, or I would sing her lead parts, or whatever. And she said, "Keith, you crazy," But she would do it. She would do it. She would humor me, and we got some great stuff because of that. Because it's to me, it's like we're both working for the same thing. We're trying to get the best piece of music that we can, and elevate where they are. And so. I didn't even think about it at the time, but they're probably looking at me like, "Now, what are you doing? I'm a singer. You're not." It's like, I don't know, but it worked. And so I've been fortunate to work with some incredible, incredible vocalists over the years.
Yeah, but see but see, you have the edge up on a lot of people because you're not just a music producer, you're a songwriter, you know how to sing, you can automatically picture it in your head, and you're trying to relay that message to the artist. So a
Right.
lot of music producers don't sing, they don't write songs. But they're all talented, but I think you have the edge because you know the full circle of the song. And so I can
Hmm.
see why you have worked with some of the greatest artists in the history of music. Now, in 1998, how did the song Colors of the Wind with Vanessa Williams, that ended up in the Disney movie Pocahontas, which led to an Oscar, how does the Oscar compare to the other multiple awards that you've won?
Well, it's that was a situation where I'd had already developed a relationship with Vanessa. We'd had several hits at that point: "Sweetest Days," "Save the Best for Last," and so when we did that song, I was like, "Wow, this is cool." I brought it in. What was the flute? Was it Bill? I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember the Indian that I brought in for the flute. Can't remember his last name. Anyway, so I knew that the time when we were doing that song that this was going to be special, and so with that, I went to New York. I actually recorded. I actually recorded with the New York Philharmonic. It was like this. This was crazy. I was like, some of the violin players on the session were carrying around $3 and $4 million violins, and I was like, "What? You're in a cab with this violin? Oh my gosh!" It was pretty remarkable. But I knew that song was going to be special. So when it was nominated for Academy Award, I told my manager, I said, "We're nominated for Academy Award. I think I should go." He said, "You're not going to win. Don't make the trip. Don't spend the money to go out." And I'm going, "Okay," but just the experience alone, I thought would have been good. So we'd actually win, and I'm like, "Dang it, I could have been there. It's good. I've experienced that whole thing." But those are the things you never know at the time. You just do it. I had a manager that I loved and adored and trusted, and he I don't think he saw a path for it, but it did. It won, so I'm really grateful. And then we had a nomination for the Page Master, Wendy Moten. And so that was another one, but we didn't win that one. But it's fun being in that category, in that class. It's just to see it recognized and the hard work that goes into making that. So, but yeah, Colors of
Yeah.
the Wind. It's funny because when people would come to the studio, I would have my awards and stuff on the walls, and I've done all these records over these years, but that one is the one that everybody would go to. You did Colors of the Wind. It's like so many people love that because they grew up with it. And it's fun to be a part of that.
It's so funny because I do so much work connected with the Oscars because of all the films. And it was so funny because people don't realize that the Academy Awards is not an American award show. It is a global award show. And I've talked to filmmakers from all over the globe. And that is the epitome of making it to the absolute top because it can make a career. Just one win makes a
Yeah.
career. So I know why everybody gravitates that when they come into your studio and they see that, they're like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, not everybody
I'm
has
proud
it
of
on
that one. I
time."
really am. I am. I'm really proud of that. So yeah.
I love that. Now, I checked back into your resume and I understand that you produced I Do Cherish You with 98 Degrees, which I know was written by Dan Hill. Now, the song was
Right.
originally made a country hit for Mark Wills, but how did you come across the song for 98 Degrees?
Well, Bruce Carbone was A&R for 98 Degrees, and we had become friendly. And matter of fact, I'd been to New York. And I was telling everybody this with Bruce. We visited like Puffy's studio in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. was the loudest I've ever heard music played in my life. I was scared to death. But Bruce says, "Hey, I want to remake this song. What do you think?" And Keith Stegall, I think, is a co-writer on that song as well. And Keith and I were friends, and so man, I'd love to take a shot at this. So yeah, we did it. I brought the guys in, and we did a shootout to see which one should be singing the lead, and Nick, to my ears, was the guy that should do that. And so, I'm not sure the other guys were so happy with me, but he got most of the song, but it worked, and it's fun seeing it on. Was it TRL at the time? That was MTV? Was that what it was?
I think so.
I can't remember. Yeah, but to seeing them on that show and stuff, it was fun. And Nick and I became good friends, and I would go out and write with him in LA. But yeah, that was a big hit for them. And again, and I've not too long ago, I was standing in the parking lot somewhere, and it was playing on loudspeakers outside, and I just kind of took my phone and I go, this is me. But it's fun. It's fun. That's the other side of this too, is that it never gets old hearing your songs on the radio or anywhere. And if I'm having sometimes a bad day, I go into Kroger or Publix and my song's playing there, and I'm like, okay, all right, it's going to be all right. So it's just it's always good to hear that stuff, kind of reaffirm.
I love that because you have to enjoy the success that you've had. And if you're driving down the road, or like you said, if you're in a grocery store and you hear your song come over the loudspeaker, you have to enjoy and smile because you're not the only one hearing it. Everybody in the
Right.
store is hearing it. So that really leads into my next question because do you ever think about all the songs that you've produced that have become part of people's special moments in their lives, from proposals to weddings, for example?
Well, yeah, and you know what? Over the years, I've gotten so many emails from people that just say that. It's like, and that's what it's about. Sometimes I'll be in a store and it'll be playing, and I'll just watch to see if anybody recognizes the song, and then I see people singing along with it, which is like that's the ultimate, right? So yeah, I mean, it's like there's something about that. I don't know. I never gets old. I like that, but I don't know. It's one of those things where it makes me it humbles me. It's like. I didn't really do much. All I did was write a song and produce it. And like the record company got it to the radio and all this stuff. There's so many other aspects of getting a song played and being successful. And I'm just grateful that I was part of that. It's so cool.
Well, now
So.
you did you really produce the artist called David? Now I know he spells it as D4VD. He went from TikTok success to having over 2 billion streams on Spotify alone. I mean,
Oh, he's a monster. I didn't produce. I don't have anything released on him currently, but we did write a song that we both feel like is a hit, and I have not finished it up. But it's like just being with him in the studio. This is another one that I'm telling you. I think he's 21 maybe now. But just being in the studio with him, okay, this guy's a star. He's got it, and he does it so differently than I do. And that was what was intriguing to me, because we started cutting vocals, and I'm meticulous about things lining up and all this stuff, but he would just do take after take after take, and then depend on me to put it all together, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But just hearing him, and is like just the one takes that he does, it's like this guy can sing. And he would record his own vocals, the stuff that's up there that has, like, I think he's got a couple of songs that are a couple of billion each. But he would do his vocals in his closet on his earphone mic, right? He would sing the vocal in there, and that's what you get. I'm going, this is a learning experience for me, because I'm using a $10,000 mic, and he's using a mic that you get with your iPhone. So there's a lot to be learned from that, and it's working. So I just think that, technology has changed the game for everybody. In some ways it's good, some ways it's not. Some people should not be making records, but at the same time, it gives everybody an opportunity, and I love that. And it makes it more competitive for me. I have to really stop and evaluate what's working about that, and what would I have done differently? How do I need to adapt to that to make it work in the future? So I'm always studying and looking at other people, how they work and how they do things, so that I don't want to be in a rut. I don't want to be dated. I don't want to do anything somebody goes, oh, that's a little dated, because that to me is the ultimate criticism. I don't want to be dated. And so. There's a library that I helped build for Facebook, and the thing is, I would get instructions. Well, we need this type of track or whatever. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of different styles of music, and I've been blessed over the years to be able to do that. I've done classical, Charlotte Church. I've done R&B, Brian McKnight, and then I've done all the gospel stuff. So I feel like I can play and tap into a lot of different genres. So when that Facebook thing came along, it gave me the ability to have to be able to create music and not think about radio. It's just like whatever came out is what I've got. I've got classical pieces on there, whatever. But from I think it was January 22 to March of 24. I found out on my dashboard I got over 8 billion views from videos that have been using this music. And I didn't do anything. I just Facebook put it in their system. And people, like right now, if you're on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, or Reels, you can go, if you have a cat video and you need music, you just go find music and put it up. But because they would listen to it and they chose that music. So that tells me the music is still working. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a shot in the arm,
yeah,
especially
I
because I've been
do
doing
it.
it so long. Yeah.
Yeah, I do it all the time. I mean,
And so,
I live on Instagram, so if I'm creating a story, I go through and say, okay, what kind of song do I want to put on this story? So for you,
right.
how did you get involved with Facebook Sound Collection?
A friend of mine, and actually who's my partner, came to me and said, "Hey, would you have any interest in helping Facebook build a library?" And initially, I said no, and then he, as convincing as he is, talked me into doing it. Right, and so we started out doing this. I was part of a small team. They had other guys involved as well. But I started creating tracks and turning them in. And at one point, not long after we started this, my partner Lauren Ballman came back to me and says, "Hey, what do you think about us building an international library for Facebook?" And I go, "I think that's great. Let's do it." So we became like their largest international music provider. And so I took 2 trips to India. We delivered music from Japan, Africa, Middle East, you name it. And then I went to India, and I did 2 different trips. I did one, I think I cut 25 tracks there, and then the second time I think it was over 30 tracks. But I got to work with some Indian artists over there, and we had other writers and producers here in Nashville that helped contribute to that, because I couldn't do all the stuff myself. But I did go cut the vocals over there. But what an experience! That's a life-changing experience. I mean, I actually ended up on the front page of the India Times, and I can't read it because it's in Hindi or whatever. But it's like that whole thing was like surreal, and I took my cameras with me, and I'm on the back of a motorcycle with my camera hanging on, shooting while the guy's driving through, Calcutta, and it was like I will never forget that. And so anyway, we were successful in that stuff. That stuff is still not online yet in terms of like it is in the Facebook collection, but I have now posted some of that stuff on Spotify and iTunes. So I'm going to actually this year be kind of not marketing, but I'm going to be actually shooting videos to that stuff so that I can actually let people go and hear what it sounds like. But I've got a lot of footage from India that is just remarkable. So I'm excited to get
Wow.
that going.
That is
Yeah, what an
so cool
experience.
because here you are making an international, a global impact with music, and that all of us are using on a daily basis, just to kind of enhance our post
Yeah.
and make them better, make them cool.
Well, you know what's the best part of that is that I get emails from people all over the world. Is that here's my video I used for your music. Thanks for making this music. I had a girl call me from the UK or I don't know how she found. She texted me from the UK saying that she was desperate. She heard a piece of music and my name came up on the metadata. And how do I get this song? And so I just sent it to her, but she said, I could not stop. I've searched everywhere for this song and couldn't find it. And I said, well, it's because it's in the Facebook collection. But so if I can get people if I can point people to the soundtracks now or to the library now, maybe I can get those same numbers on Spotify. Who knows? But that's the goal is to kind of point people to the library so that we can get some streaming done. But
I love
I,
that.
I,
I love that.
yeah, it's phenomenal.
Now I recently interviewed Kennedy Center honoree inductee soprano Renee Fleming. She wrote a
Hmm.
book called Music and Mind and the Healing Aspects of Music and the Implementation of Music Therapy for various conditions like dementia, Parkinson's, pain relief, even anxiety, for example. Now, you are
Right.
involved in a project with Sanctuary Media Labs and Houston Methodist Hospital. Is that music therapy?
That is music therapy. Now, just between the two of us, I am not allowed at this point legally to use music. Houston Methodist. We are actually on a call tomorrow to discuss all of that. But I started 2 years ago. Lauren Ballman, my partner in the Facebook, I started writing piano music. And we started going, wow, this is really therapeutic. And so I started shooting 3D content for the Oculus headset. And so I would put this music to the things that I've shot with drone footage or photography or whatever. And because I've been a photographer since high school. I was the annual staff photographer and I've had a passion for that. And I think it's all in the same part of the brain. So my wife and I went to Jackson Hole a year ago, a year and a half ago, and to visit a friend. She said, I want you to come out and come out to the ranch. I knew she had a ranch, but I didn't know she had a ranch. It's like 3,000 acres, right? It was like, holy crow. So we go out and I tell her what I'm doing. I play the music, I put the headset on. She says, you got to meet my friend Todd over at this hospital. I'm not mentioning the name. But so anyway, she connected us. We hit it off. We ended up going to this hospital and doing tests on two different patients and the fMRI machine. And one of the pieces of music that I wrote put one of the patients in what's called the default mode network. And I'm not real sure how to describe what that is, other than it's a peaceful state of mind. This patient was daydreaming. And the doctors really thought that was phenomenal. And so they collected all that data. And 2 months later, they send us like the brain scans and everything. So I'm able to see in real time how the music is affecting her brain. And it's pretty amazing. At one point, the doctor said to me, come over here. She loves this music. I said, how do you know? He said, well, this is the emotional part of the brain and it's bright red. And so, the music does have healing properties. And so that's kind of where we are now. We are at a place where we're going to go back and test five more patients. We have a commitment to build a headset prototype and like 1,000 headsets for clinical trials, that sort of thing, and the app that goes with it. So we're still looking for funding for the music side of it, which I think is the most crucial part of this at this point because of what it represents. But all that together, we feel like we're onto something. We've met with a number of hospitals. I won't give the names again, but they all are very interested in this technology, and I'm excited to be a part of like the beginning of it. I spoke to one CEO at a hospital. He says, "You're about ready to change the healthcare industry." And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I hope you're right." But um, imagine somebody that's getting cancer treatment or dialysis or pain management, and they are able to have this experience, while they're sitting there for an hour or 2 hours, however long it takes, and it completely takes them to a different place, but they also have music that's healing and comforting and that sort of thing. So we feel like it's something special, and we'll see, but we're just in the early stage right now.
Yeah, I think you're about to make history in a whole new way. And how would, I mean, for you, Keith Thomas, mega record producer, songwriter, hit maker, and now medical industry visionary.
I don't know about that, but I'm like, I love the idea of what the benefits people can get from that, and how it can help. I because we all have our moments when, like, oh my gosh, you go through right now, everybody's so keyed up and stressed out over life, and it's so different. We all need that, right? Oh my gosh. So I'm excited about the potential for that. So I'm
Yeah,
really,
well,
I just kind of
Jesus is,
stumbled onto it.
yeah, Jesus is still the healer, and you're bringing healing in a whole new way. So I can't
Uh,
wait to see where that goes. So what is next for Keith Thomas?
well, that is what my main focus is right now, trying to get this off the ground, trying to get the funding that we need for that. And we continue to make progress. And that's that it's been 2 years, but just recently got the commitment for the headset, so that we're like, check that box, right? And I'm still making records. I love to write. Because of the situation with a lot of people aren't able to afford making pop records these days, and then the budgets are so small, and the return is so little because I think the average artist makes $12 a month on Spotify. So I mean, the music is now like a lost leader. It's more about, we're in the attention economy. Whoever has the most attention wins. And I'm learning from that. That's another thing when we were talking about earlier, just looking at how things are done differently right now. I have to realize that too. And I'm not one for the attention. I've never really been an attention person. It's like, I mean, I can deal with it, but it's like, that's not what I seek. So now I am going to have to do that. I'm going to have to get myself on TikTok or, just kind of on a regular basis to be in out of sight, out of mind. That's kind of how it works these days. But but the other side of that is the music therapy thing. I think has a different reach globally, and I think it's important. And it doesn't require me to be on any social media platform every day, posting 3 or 4 times a day, right? But I don't know. I love pop music. I'm developing a few acts still right now that I'm really excited about. So, we'll just see where it all goes. Who knows?
Man,
Still hunting it.
I love it. I love it. And ladies and gentlemen, at any given moment you turn on the radio or listen to music on streaming, most likely you're going to hear a song that Keith Thomas has written or produced or both. A man with a massive
Oh,
resume who shows no signs of slowing down. And of course, if you made a post on Facebook or Instagram, we've all added a song clip to add a little bit more flavor to it. Well, that we can thank Keith Thomas for as well. And Keith, I want to thank you so much for sharing parts
hmm.
of your legacy, as well as insights in your current and future music endeavors and projects with us today. Loved it.
Man, bless you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. This has been fun. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.